Hi, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for choosing to watch this video. This video is going to focus on strength and balance in our legs. But like always, I'm going to start with our spinal floss and a little extra hip mobility before we move into our standing balances. So I like to do my spinal floss on my mat because the floor is really good feedback for us. However, if coming down to the floor is not available to you or it doesn't feel good, you can always do the spinal floss seated. I'm going to go through it on the floor first, then I will demonstrate how to do it seated. If you don't want to wait for that, I have another video that shows how to do the spinal floss seated, so you're welcome to click over and check that one out while we're working here. So coming to the mat, we're going to lay down with our knees bent, soles of the feet on the mat, and knees and feet are about hips distance apart. Taking a breath, and then taking your hands and placing them on your pelvis. So a lot of people call this their hips. The hip is actually the joint where the bone meets the socket, but this is our pelvis, and this is where we want our hands. And the reason we want our hands here is because the movement that we're getting ready to do originates from the pelvis and the base of the spine. So we're going to start with some rounding and arching of the spine, also known as cat-cow. Think about your pelvis rolling to meet the ribs. The back comes in contact with the mat all the way from the sacrum, which is where the tailbone meets the pelvis, all the way up to in between the shoulders. So this is our rounding. And then we're going to reverse it. The pelvis is going to roll toward the heels. The back arches and comes up off the mat. You might even be able to get your hands under your back. If you can't, that's totally fine. We're going to just go back and forth between these two, and you decide what it looks like. If it's going to be a subtle move or a large move, that's totally up to you. Make sure you're breathing. And what we're doing here is we are lengthening our spine, we're rounding our spine, we are creating some spinal movement that we normally take standing up. However, when we are lying down, we get the feedback of the floor, which helps us stay in alignment. And then we'll come back to neutral. Now, to find your neutral spine, you're going to just rock your pelvis gently. And in the lower part of your back, imagine you have a blueberry and you're not crushing it, but you're also not letting it roll around. You're holding that blueberry right there in the lower part of your back. That's your neutral spine. And that's where we want to be right now, because the next movement of the spine is twisting or rotating. And we do that by letting our knees go side to side. And you can start at doing 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. You can start with the knees and feet hips distance apart. You can bring them closer together. You can bring them out wide. Each foot placement is going to give you a little different twist. You're also welcome to make this move a little bit bigger. The only requirement is that the shoulders stay on the mat. So this is our twisting for our spine. So think about when you're reaching back to put your seatbelt on, or if you are looking out your back window to reverse because you don't trust your backup camera. We want to make sure we are still twisting our spine. And then go ahead and come back to neutral. So that little pelvic rocking. And then we're going to extend the legs out straight. I'm going to need to scoot up on my mat. And here we're going to take a lateral bend with our spine, but before we do that, we're going to lengthen the spine. So think about your feet going all the way to the end of the mat and your head going all the way to the top. And that gives you that length in the spine that we need. So our lateral bend is when we're bending to the side. And we do that by sliding our heels to the right corner of the mat. You can stay right here. If you want more of a bend in the spine, then you slowly bring your head and shoulders over to the top right corner. So now I have this curve on my right side and this extension on my left side. I can cross my legs at the ankles. I can bring my arms out, finding a place that feels good if I want a stretch. Everything stays on the floor though. So if you bring the arms out and they start coming up, we want to bring them down. I like to keep my arms at my side. Think about breathing into the left lung, letting it expand to the front, to the side, and to the back. And then bringing the arms down if you have them up, uncrossing the legs. Head and shoulders come back to the middle of the mat, then the feet. And take a moment and notice how the left side feels versus the right side. Maybe you feel some length, there's some expansion. So now we're going to move to the right, but before we do that, we're going to lengthen the spine. So extend, feet all the way to the bottom, head all the way to the top, and then slide the heels to the left corner. Slide the head and shoulders to the left corner. Cross the legs at the ankles if you would like. Add some arms. Remember, everything stays on the floor. Breathe into that right lung, to the front, to the side, and to the back. And then bring the arms down, uncross the legs, head and shoulders, come back to the middle, followed by the feet. And that is our spinal floss. We've moved our spine in all the directions that it goes. Now, before we come up to standing to work on our balance, we're going to do a little bit of work for that hip joint because that's what we're going to be stabilizing today. So this stretch is called the figure 4 or piriformis. So the knees are bent, soles of the feet to the mat. If it's available to you, bringing the right ankle to the left knee and then pushing that right knee away from the body. Now, if this is not available to you, you can always straighten the leg a little bit and then maybe just let the hip open up. So you're still opening the joint. So the opening comes from the hip joint. The piriformis stretch gets the opening, but we also get a stretch here. And if you want more of a stretch, you can see about raising that left leg off the mat and pulling it in. Now this is going to activate some core muscles. So it's not a must. We just really want to get this opening here in our hip with some stability and the stretch. And you can come in and out, but the movement comes from the hip, not the knee. So my movement is here. And then we'll switch. So again, if this is not available to you, then what you're going to do, straighten the legs a little bit, bend at the knee, and then just let the leg fall open to wherever it can. If this is available, remember we want to keep the knee away from the body. And from here, we will come up to seated. So you can roll to one side, pushing yourself up, and then coming up to standing. Now, if you would prefer to do your spinal floss seated, I'm going to go through that quickly and show you how that's done. If you've already done your spinal floss and you're ready to move on, grab a chair or a step stool, something that you can use to support yourself for balance. If you prefer to do the spinal floss seated, you can do that on the floor or in a chair, and we're going to do the same move. So we're going to practice arching the back. The movement comes from the base of the spine and then rounding the back, and it's very subtle. And then we'll move into our twisting. Again, we're twisting from the lower part of the back. It's very subtle. And then our lateral bend. So for this, you can place one hand beside you. You can bring the other hand up if you'd like, or you don't have to. It depends on your range of motion. And then we're going to think about just extending through the left, letting the right side compress, and just getting this little bend, lateral bend in our spine. Coming up, moving to the opposite side. And that is the seated spinal floss. So go ahead and grab a chair, a step stool, anything that you can handle, a cabinet, handle anything you can have, a cabinet, anything where you can put your hand on for some balance, and then we'll get started with our standing work. All right, let's get started with some standing work. We're going to focus on some leg strength, foot strength, balance. You do need something. So whether that's a chair, a step stool, a kitchen table, a counter, a wall, you need something for balance. And the reason why is something called light touch. When the brain knows that you have something, whether you're placing one finger on it or a whole hand, the brain settles down and it lets you be balanced. When you don't have it, the brain's freaking out. So we want something. We're going to start with calf raises, and we do these with 3 different foot positions. And let me just say, there is no gold star for going super high. We're not looking for this when we're doing the calf raises. What we're looking for is alignment, balanced weight on our feet, and working the calves, because our calves are called our second heart, because they are what gets the return blood flow up to our upper part of our body. So you'll hear people that are told to keep their legs elevated. It's because it helps with the return blood flow. What we're going to do is we're going to strengthen these muscles so that you don't have to keep your legs elevated. The legs are going to be strong enough to do it for you. So grab your stool, chair, whatever you need. We're going to start with our calf raises with our feet facing forward. So if you can, push the balls of the feet into the floor, lift up the toes and spread them out. Let your weight settle under your big toe and your pinky toe. And then just shift your weight forward a little bit. Let your heels come up the mat a little tiny bit and then come back. And let your weight settle on the outside of the heel and the inside of the heel. So now you've got the 4 corners of the feet. And let me say this also, whatever you're using for balance needs to either be